Hey guys, it's me, Sugar, and I'm here with my husband, Jeff.
Hello.
And we're here to talk about kind of our season wrap-up. We've had a couple podcasts, kind of the preview. Preview. Lordy live, I can't talk, ever, apparently. So we had like our preview, our kind of immediate thoughts of the anime as it came out. We had our mid-season thoughts, but we haven't kind of wrapped everything up necessarily. We might have talked about some of them, but we kind of haven't had them all in one group. So if you missed the other podcast, you're in the right place for this season anyways. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, the season that just ended.
The season that just
Spring
ended. Not the one that's coming on.
Spring
Wrap
2018.
up. Yeah. Okay. So we'll get into the next season once more episodes come out. We can give you a better idea.
It's looking barren.
It looks sparse. But we'll get into that. Let's get into what we completed. We'll start in alphabetical order, I guess, from how we kind of have it in English, which is Cardcaptor's Clear Card-hen. And if you weren't around for my original rant...
Yeah.
So let's start with... I guess we should start out. It's the end of season. I don't think we should do spoilers. We can kind of say things as they are, vaguely.
Okay.
But still skirt. And
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who are listening want to know, but don't want to be spoiled.
Fine.
Right. Okay. So, Cardcaptors. If you haven't listened to the other podcasts, I'll try and sum it up here.
Mm-hmm.
We, both Jeff and I, were huge fans of Cardcaptors. And yes, both Boy
I think
and...
we could still say R.
And
of the
R,
original
yeah.
Cardcaptor
Still
Sakura.
R.
It still holds up.
It's one of the early ones where it was on TV and I was in love with it. And then they made a mistake how it aired, so it reran, so that was perfect for me. So, long story short, we loved it. I personally can't speak for Jeff, because I don't know if he's seen the movies. I love the movies, even though they're not canonical anymore. But
Yeah, they were fine.
I like them.
Yeah.
And then this came along.
You could tell from tone, perhaps, how Sugar feels about that.
So, initially we had a podcast, even before the season started. And Jeff
Yeah,
asked
it would have been just after they retconned the last episode of the original series, and they did that as a special, and we watched that, and then we just did a quick sort of podcast about that.
We were talking about the OVA, and Jeff said to me, I remember clearly, what do you want from the next season? I said, if she's just doing her thing and catching cards, I'll be happy. I shot too low.
Yeah.
Because it's like somebody hurt me and they're like, I can make it worse. The whole time, like, honest to goodness, I know I'm going to rant about this, is the fact that the whole show saps the life out of the first season. We don't get her personality. We don't get Kero's personality. We really don't get anybody's personality. It's a pronoun game, anybody talking to each other. Everyone's lying to each other. Everyone has this own kind of agenda that nobody really knows. Mm-hmm. It's just ridiculous. And the show basically became Sakura baking the show. Oh, and things happen sometimes. And there are some like decent cards that show up, but they're exactly the same as the first ones, which are pointed out midway through the season.
Yeah.
The show talks down to like the lowest common denominator, and I'm sorry because I know a lot of people love this season.
It's over an 8.
And it blows my mind because yes, nostalgia bites everyone in the butt, but it didn't bite me hard enough, obviously, because I went in with love goggles and I came out drunk, sick. Like I came out sick. I was not in love. I was hating it. I was so bitter, and I'm not going to spoil it, but the way they wrapped it up, it was a kick in the crotch, and I'm so livid.
I'm a little bit more. This is what I will say. The times at which it's actually really good, like it's really good, and it really had me enthralled, which was all the more a kick to the crotch when it was like, okay, it's building to something. Nope.
The whole time, I was like,
nope,
it's not
done.
building.
It feels like they had 8 episodes of content that they spread across, 22, 24 episodes, something like that.
I think it was like 21, something like that.
So it just feels, and when we were talking to other people, when we were talking on Reddit, or I'm on GameFAQs, Sugar is more on Reddit, and there's lots of people who are like, they'll admit, they're like, oh yeah, there was a lot more slice of life in this than there was last time. I'm like, But that's not why we watch a magical girl anime. That's not why we watched Cardcaptor Sakura. We didn't watch it and think, boy, we need to see more of her baking.
Yeah.
Boy, we need to see more of her burgeoning friendship with, this other person. And then, like you said, it almost kind of talks down to you. Because things that became very obvious to us, like, 3 episodes in, they talk about it like episode 16. They're like, wow, did you notice blank? We're like, yeah, we noticed it 4.5 hours ago. Yeah. What's happening here? And so
you're right, it was 22 episodes. It just seemed like it should have been short.
So the thing that sucked about it was that just there were little hints of things that I was really interested in, that I was like, wow, if they go this direction, that'll be great. No, they go back to her baking. They go back to her, new friendship with another character and all this sort of stuff. And I'm just like, maybe this is something. Maybe all of this comes up in the next season, and the next season will just be
I won't be
hit
watching
after hit after hit. I'm gonna make you watch it just because you hate Attack on Titan, and you'll still watch that.
Attack on Titan, though, is at least entertaining. At no point during this did I feel entertained. I felt like I was one of those times where I could have been on my phone and cooking and not missed anything. Like, it was
there
so
was episodes
boring.
Where you could have
so boring.
Essentially not missed anything.
Exactly, you wouldn't have missed anything. There were episodes literally where they talked and had picnics. Like, I don't care. I know these characters from the first season. I don't need to be reintroduced to them. I get it. Come on.
I feel like if it would have been a 12 episode, like, it would have been so much better. And instead of it being like so almost insultingly boring, it would have been like, we would have been sitting here like, you know what, like, there were some parts that were kind of boring, but, overall, they introduced some cool stuff. Where now it's like, which episode was it that was actually good?
Yeah. If somebody would ask me, I'd be like, well, it ended, so that's probably the most important one.
There would be, I think, like, the first episode, and then there's a couple
and
in
the one
early
with
teens, and then the last 3. The final 3 episodes. Other than that, you don't miss anything. Not
even the last 3. It's like, it's a joke. It's so bad.
I think...
In regards to story, you need the first and the last 3, and that's literally all you need. It's literally a joke. It's so bad. And as for actually, like, good episodes, there was, like, 2. In regards to elemental cards.
Oh, yeah.
In that sense. Other than that, it was bad. I wouldn't recommend it. Sorry to tell you this. I truly love the original, like, season.
Yeah. And
it's so heartbreaking.
And let's give credit where credit's due. Animation wise, it is beautiful in a lot of sections, which makes their odd use of CGI at times like really jarring.
But that's the thing. They use CG in like really gross places, like the crowd, which makes it like all the more prominent. And the fact
stuff that you notice right away.
And like some of the animation in some episodes was off, and I'm like, why do her arms look broken? Like, it was just off, like for some unknown reason. Yeah.
Most of the time, it looked quite pretty.
Most of the time, a little oversaturated in some episodes.
But I mean, even the original was kind of like that. The studio kind of does that.
It's more of a template kind of thing.
I feel like the Japanese voice actors do a pretty good job. The English voice acting made me want to shoot myself in the face. And I'm not even like just with a BB gun until I die.
Usually I'm the dark one.
It was so bad. I don't understand how they could have picked.
If Jack says it's bad, it's really bad.
I'm kind of a stickler for voice acting though, because if I can't if I can't believe that character sounds like that,
you can't believe the world.
Yeah, I'm totally out.
Yeah.
The Japanese voice acting was pretty good. I liked most of the voices that they chose.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just they had 6 to 10 episodes worth of content, and they stretched it across 22. And anybody who says otherwise, I really question their ability to understand what the point of it was.
Yeah.
Because they weren't building tension. They weren't doing any world building.
No.
They weren't doing they didn't even do a serviceable job of like showing this new friendship that she finds. That's plot wise.
Oh, shocker! By the way, somebody moves into the neighborhood, so you can imagine what their role will be. Just hint, hint.
Yeah, and so like, if you want to sit there and argue like, well, they needed to spend some time, building all of this stuff. There's no tension. There's no drama. There's barely any laughter. It's all just boring. Let's see what we can bake. Let's have a good time together. Let's show how fantastic Sakura as a friend is, because we didn't know that already. Of course we knew that already. Like, we're rooting for her the whole time anyways.
Yeah.
It doesn't serve a purpose beyond padding the length of the season.
Long story short, it was bad. Like, the first season, I remember legitimately laughing. This season, I don't think I laughed at all. The whole time, I was sitting there with a scowl. The whole season. I don't remember a single moment where I was like, that was funny. Some
of the ending scenes with Kero,
I kind of laughed at that, because with his dynamic with the other, I say I'm a fan, and then I forget the damn name. Ariel's creature. Yeah. There we go. When they have their back and forth of kind of like banter, it's just funny, because they're so much alike in a lot of ways and yet different, and it's just funny. That's the only time where I kind of smiled. I didn't even laugh. I smiled, and I'm like, that's what I wanted. The whole season of Kero being Kero. Kind of being like very high energy, like grouchy, funny, sarcastic. That was none of the season. Yeah. It was just a walking, talking teddy bear.
Yeah. And then, like you said, it really, really bothered me that especially into like the second half of it, it's literally everybody just lying to each other, lying through omission, playing the pronoun game, or like, literally there was a time when they were like, is it time to say something yet? And then they'll be like, no.
And it comes up like a lot.
Like, that happens 3 or 4 times, and you're sitting there just like,
is it time? No, not yet. Yeah. And they have like this long like panning shot, like this huge suspense when I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I know you're not going to answer this question, so I don't care.
You have effectively made me just not care anymore.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. And like I said, if the next season, if they're like, oh, okay, it's going to be 12 episodes and we're going to finish this arc, you know what? I'll be like, okay, maybe they've learned their lesson and understood that they didn't have enough content. But I don't suspect that will happen, because this seemed to be quite successful.
So long story short, I'm sure you can imagine they hinted at another season.
Hinted? If they end it here, it's going to piss off so many people.
Let's just say the ending was bogus.
Maybe they'll just do a movie and that'll be it.
That's the dream, that it'll just end quickly. But anywho, I know some of you will be mad about it, and sorry to tell you, that's just how it is. I love the show, and it broke my heart, honest to goodness.
I would be really, I'm really intrigued to hear what people really enjoyed about it. Because when I ask people about it, they're just like, oh, you know what, I like seeing her life. And I'm like...
But we saw it.
Yeah,
she's a young girl. What else does she do but go to school, hang out with her friends, and cook? And now recapture cards. We know her life.
Yeah.
Get into, more dynamic ideas and really character building.
Building, world building. If you don't want to build your characters, because they did a pretty good job of that in the first series, then build the world. I was super excited to hear about other magical schools and other magical beings that had nothing to do with Clow Reed or anything. I was like,
it was one sentence.
Really intriguing. I was like, I hope they look at this more. No.
Yeah, it was one sentence, and it's just well, we'll leave that for next season. I'm like, you're lucky you have people that love you so much, because if you were anybody else...
There's a hint to the most disappointing anime of the season.
Yeah. It's honest to goodness, if it had any other name, people wouldn't give it the props it's getting. It was bullshit. Sorry. Anyways, I think we've said all we needed to about that. If not, you can go to the other podcast where I lose my mind. So the next one is Digimon Try, and that's the 6th part. That was this season.
You weren't as high on this as I was.
No, honestly. It felt like, with it going from 1 to 6, I felt like they started off pretty strong. Gut-wrenchingly strong. And just kind of petered out. I wouldn't say the ending was bad. It just kind of petered. for me.
I feel like they peaked at 3 and 4. The middle peaked, and then so we had like this rising, and then this really cool. And I think the reviews tend to kind of agree that the third and fourth movies were like high points, and then it just kind of was like, oh, sort of like how, oddly enough, thinking back to Digimon and whatnot, that in Digimon Season 1, it felt like they hit a natural crescendo, and then where like they could have just ended the season, ended the series even, and then they're like, oh, no, wait, there's more stuff. We'll just keep putting more stuff in. I liked it. I thought it was interesting, and I like when Digimon goes a little bit more serious.
Yeah.
So, like, I enjoyed it, but I remember once it was done, I made this, like, long post on a forum that I go to, and I was like, is this really, like, this is what happened, right?
Yeah.
I was like, there's, like 7 different people all kind of in play and working off of each other and
there's more than 7
manipulating each other and whatnot, and people were like, yeah, like that's just kind of how it is. And I was like, it's overly convoluted for its own good.
It's the thing I have problems with is it started really strong. It started really, I think, properly in the sense that it got its original fans, where it's like, you remember the people you love and we're gonna hit you where it hurts. And honest to God, it did, because I cried. Which to me tells me a lot about investment, and something that I beloved when I was younger has not changed. So I feel like really strong and got you in the feels, which is a really great place to start. And then it started with a story where you felt like it could be going places, especially when you find out that, without giving anything away, there's somebody who's a shapeshifter, put it that way. And so you kind of question, without knowing this early on, who this person really is. And we won't get into that. But it really changes some of the story and kind of question what you think you know about Digimon. But then near the end, I feel like they copy some certain things they did in movies. I think I insinuated that to you when something happened. So I was kind of downtrodden in the sense that they'd kind of play on that idea again. But I feel like...
I mean, there's sort of a theme that this, at least for this incarnation of Digimon, because like Season 3 and like all of them are kind of different incarnations of the Digimon story. This in particular,
well, this is continuing kind of, after this really happened.
It's after the second season, But I mean, I'm just saying is that like the third season kind of had its own group of people and like its
but this
own
happens
themes.
Even after that, because
but I don't think it's all one continuity. I don't think that Season 3 happened and then like this happened after it. This is a continuation just of Season 2.
I would say no, but I don't want to get into why right now. Anywho,
I don't
things that are shown
I don't recall
in there.
Seeing any characters from Season 3 or 4 or beyond.
I'll give my theories at another time. But anyways, long story short, it happens sometime after the first season. Not obviously beyond the
second season.
Yes, what I'm saying is that we have our main cast again.
Yeah.
Our older version of our original cast. And it's shown that some of the other Digidestined are in the picture. They're just not in the foreground.
No, they're not in the fight.
Well, they are, but let's not get into it. Anyways, I'm not going to get into that. Anywho, so to me, it's not that it was bad. It was okay. It just felt like it started really strong and kind of petered out for me in the end, because I felt like the main, I would say the message of this 6-parter was of loss. Yeah. Of our nostalgia, of the sense of losing people we love, of losing, Digimon, because we get other stories from people we've never met. And it's really good, but again, kind of peters out near the end and kind of plays, how can I say it? Near the end, basically, things play out, and we are given a hint that things will continue. As for if it'll continue via movie, via another season, via whatever, it will likely continue on because things are unanswered for some things.
Yeah.
So, that's the way I can put it without spoiling anything.
Well, that was what I was saying, that
okay.
with what the movie is sort of showing is that this cycle that our current Digidestined are in, it repeats.
In a sense.
In a sense.
It's hard to explain without you knowing.
No, it just... the Digidestined, it isn't just these 7.
No.
These are the only ones that have ever existed.
We are made aware that
Digidestined are always around.
Yeah.
They've always impacted.
They're just at
the
different
world.
places, different times, different whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that's what I was trying to get to.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Was that like, you know, some of the Digidestined in the past were not as successful.
Yeah.
Some of them lost.
Failed
Essentially,
horribly.
they failed, and so that's why I like it kind of going a little bit more serious.
I do like
that. That's
that.
why it leaves itself open, because
Yeah.
if they solve everything, that doesn't thematically it doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
I find. I liked it overall. It definitely felt like it peaked in the middle, but lots of anime do that.
Yeah.
I feel like it might have been an issue just with the whole, instead of making a season, they just made 6 movies.
Yeah, they did. They chopped them up.
Yeah, and so then I kind of wonder how many were initially asked for and then how many were added on after, because it felt like, again, they might have hit a point where it could have been the end, and then they were like, "Oh no, we'll give you another movie."
I think they were always. Yeah, I can
I
correct
think
myself.
they had plans, but they also had to they had to craft it in a way that if they didn't get more, that it could have ended there.
Yeah.
So it always kind of felt like, oh, this is the end.
It felt kind of like Avatar, where they're kind of conservatively like, okay, if this doesn't go well, but it did, obviously.
Yeah.
It got its 6 kind of tiers, so to speak. Yeah, I thought it was decent.
The last movie I'd give like a 7.
It was
the best movie I would
one.
give a 10, because I thought that the best of the films was absolutely excellent.
Mm-hmm.
But they range from a 7. No, most of them are like 7s, and then when it just hits really well, it's a 10.
Yeah, I think early on I gave it high scores, and near the end I think I gave it a 6, just because things weren't wrapped up. We weren't given concrete evidence that another season was coming, that some things were, like I said, kind of copied and pasted from other things that happened.
Yeah.
But nothing was wrong with it. It was just kind of underwhelming to me.
It ended in a way, and it also, it doesn't really end happy. It doesn't end.
Let's say that.
It doesn't end
happy.
cripplingly, oh my god, everything is terrible and the world is over or something, but it's sort of like, oh.
Yeah, I think if
I'm glad nobody died. But, but...
I think if you're new to it, hopping into it, watching these 6 parts, I feel like you might think it's alright, but you might not be as invested as somebody like us who watched the original stuff, and it was, horribly nostalgic.
It was nostalgic. It was... I liked the way that they animated. I liked the fact that it looks
realistic,
a little bit different.
Yeah.
I think that anybody who likes Digimon should take it in, because it's not as bad as Digimon has gotten. It's not...
What do you mean in the sense of bad?
I think Season 4 of Digimon is awful.
Oh, I see what you mean.
The one where they're turning into the Digimon, and then there's another one where they
the cross.
They amalgamate together into one. No, come on. Don't do that. So... While I would say personally it doesn't reach the heights of Season 1 or Season 3, I think it's still better. It's probably the 3rd best one. I think it's a little bit better than Season 2. And it's still, for me, overall, it was like a 7. Swimming in 7s.
But I can say about the 6 parts as a whole, what I really appreciated, and it also happens in the sixth part as well, I really like that they went dark.
Yeah.
Where, no spoilers, but people die, Digimon die.
Yeah.
And I like that it's very honest, this isn't a game anymore, this is really happening sort of thing. And I like that. It brings kind of reality to our...
If you liked the 3rd season of Digimon, Tamers, I think is what it's subtitled as, I think that you would like the direction they go in with it here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, it depends on what you watched, because the dub... No, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
The dubs have always been kind of sanitized for North American audiences because they are targeted for younger kids, whereas the anime in Japan was targeted towards teenagers. So it was always a little bit darker.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we watched it, subbed, and it was great.
Yeah. So that kind of wraps that up. So I guess we could talk about our next one, which is Hisone and Masotan. That's just the way I'll say it. So I screw up the tongue twister there. It was really surprisingly good.
Yes, it was excellent. I'm not gonna say a whole heck of a lot at this point because I do have Sugar has graciously allowed me to make a video on her channel about it.
Yeah.
That's how much it impressed me.
Yeah.
We don't get a lot of originals anymore.
Well,
This was entirely original. It's never had it didn't have any sort of source material. There was no manga, light novel, anything.
I'd say it's more harder to get something that doesn't have original content that's good.
That's fair.
Let's specify a little bit.
So yeah, like I've got a video I've got my script all ready to go, and it'll probably be put up in the next few days, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah. We won't get into the meat of it, but long story short, you might have heard from our other podcasts. It's about girls who become pilots, and they pilot dragons, but as fighter jets. So,
It's
but not just, ride them and that's it. They have to be swallowed by these dragons to actually be able to control them. And at first...
it sounds insane.
Yeah. And at first, I was like, I don't know if I want to watch this.
I was the one that jumped in on this because I have a soft spot for dragons.
Yes, I was about to say, Jeff's a huge fan for dragons. I'm not a huge fan of vomit, so right away when I saw them puking out the people, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. But I saw past that, and I soon realized the promise that was in the show.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's just kind of me being nerdy, but I think the thing that kept me around was the opener and the outro, and the fact that the art style was so like the newspapers I used to read. And I loved that. It was very nostalgic for me in the sense of just the art style. I never even thought of it ever being in an anime, because I was just like, it kind of looks like the oh goodness. Oh, I'll think of it. Not now, but I'll think of it. The one where it's like 7 of the guys look the same, and it's all the they're younger.
Oh my.
It's going insane. It's fine. I'll think of it.
Are you talking about an anime?
Yes, yes.
Oh, is that with the brothers?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to think
Osomatsu-san?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Osomatsu-san.
It's like in that's vein of cartoon drawing, which I like. Long story short, that's kind of our premise of the show. The opener and the outro is really, really good. Very unique for the show, let's put it that way. If you haven't seen it, go give it a watch. And the ending is surprisingly, and initially, I'll just say this a little bit and then I'll leave the video after. Initially, I wasn't sure how invested I was going to be, but as time rolled on, we got more character development. We started getting more characters slowly melding in, and by the end, I was really invested. I really liked the ending. The ending was super boss.
It's intriguing because the characters, the main protagonist is quite. You can't even necessarily say flawed. She isn't flawed per se, but she is very
honest
to
a crippling degree.
Yeah, but she also recognizes it.
She's very aware.
She's self-aware of how she acts.
Yeah,
which is interesting, and it walks this tightrope between being very serious, basically they're going to be tasked with this thing they have to do, that if they don't do it, lots of people are going to die.
Yeah.
This isn't fun. I get to sit here and ride dragons. Yay, this is so cool.
It's a very...
But there is that side of it too. The characters
are very honest.
They straddle that line between this is cool.
Yeah.
This is so unique. This is so amazing that I get to do this. But then there's also that kind of, if let's say you ride a roller coaster for the first time and it's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
You do that 50 times in a row, and it is going to become a little mundane. It's going to become like, it's just another day. And so the anime straddles...
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
I
couldn't help
I don't want to get hit with a copyright strike because we're just too good as singers. But it straddles this line perfectly between what would become mundane about it, but yet still always reminds you of just how like extraordinary this all is.
Yeah.
And they really do a good job of doing world building, of integrating in like all these other people that have to be involved in the process, and that, you know, this is something that's existed for a long time, and so we get just these little bits of lore put in throughout, and then when it becomes relevant, when it becomes something that is more than just like, oh yeah, like this has happened before, that's why we know about all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When it becomes relevant, when it becomes something that needs to happen within the story, that's when we hear a little bit about the past and about people who have went through this sort of stuff before. And you have characters in there that are like just fascinated with the dragons, and like you have this one guy who you think for a little bit might be like a weird perv, but it turns out that he's just fascinated with making the suits that they need to do this, because you can't just make a regular clothing suit if you're going to be inside the belly of a dragon. So he'll eye up everybody because he's like getting their measurements because he's like, I think I have an idea using you, like what will work.
Yeah.
And then like it's just everything works together so well with it. It was just wonderful, and the more I watched it, the more I wanted. And that doesn't happen very often with an anime.
Yeah.
And the second that it was done, it's 12 episodes, but I'm like, God, I hope we get more. Like, I hope it does well enough. And I think Netflix, in some capacity, has some licensing rights.
Yeah, it was written that Netflix was the
one
one picking it up.
Maybe that will allow it the opportunity, because it does seem like it's flying under the radar a little bit. Not a lot of people are talking about it. It doesn't have a lot of reviews. So it seems like it's getting good word of mouth, but at the same point, it just, not a lot of people are taking it in.
It's very much one of those ones where it's either really hits people or really misses.
Yeah.
And I find the people it's hit have hit very well.
Yeah.
And I find you just have to give it a chance, because it's not your normal anime. That's the best way I can explain it. And I think every podcast we've had is like, I don't know how to explain it. But now that I get the full picture, I do know how to explain it, but I won't, because I'm going to leave that up to Jeff in another video. But I can say one thing that I truly love about the show is that all of the girls aren't just written and drawn from A to B. They have full character of somebody who I'm like, the whole time I'm like, God, that reminds me of blank in real life. That reminds me of this person. Because like even there's one scene, and I'll leave out blank so you don't know what I'm talking about. One person says to another person, well, you like blank. And they just start screaming and going red in the face, and they start running because they don't know what to do. And it's so funny. It's so funny. I laugh so hard.
And like it's so interesting in the sense that it's
obviously me thinking about it.
Yeah, an anime like this, I would actually forgive it if it had like went down this idea of like, you know, oh, they have this monumental responsibility, and you know, it's soul crushing, and there's lots of anime that have done that where you get to do this extraordinary thing, but the pressure that comes with it is horrible.
Yeah.
But you have so many of these other characters who are just like, are you kidding me? You get to do something that like a dozen people in the world get to do.
Yeah.
Don't sit here and complain.
Yeah.
Like, this is all I've ever wanted to do.
Yeah.
And you get to do this because I don't get to. So there's like this just gnawing jealousy that some characters have, which would be 100% understandable.
And to make sense of what Jeff just said, another part we might not have explained properly is the dragons pick the people they want to fly with. So that's what he means, that there's only a group full of people that get to fly them because they pick them. Nobody can just ride them. They have to pick them. And, you know, some people you see aren't as happy about it and are kind of waxing and waning about what to do about it, while other ones were like, I've hoped for this the whole time. And they lucked out, So it's very much those different kinds of stories. It's just great.
Oh, and then I didn't even mention that they are integrated into the Air Force. So they are just part. They're part of the military, and so the military, of course, traditionally mostly guys, and so there's this awesome little integration of the riders who are all female. For whatever reason, I don't know if they necessarily gave one beyond just that's who the dragons choose.
Well, they do give a reason, but we can't talk about it. We won't talk about it.
It's a theory that they have. They're not 100% sure on that, but
they're pretty confident about it.
Yeah, but then there are the guys who are there, and half of them are man, I wish that I could be riding a dragon too, and then the other half are they don't know what they're doing. All of these people have no idea how to actually be fighter pilots. Why do we have to sit here and babysit them?
Yeah.
And then, of course, some of them start crushing on the girls because, they're all 18 or 17, and the guys there are young guys, and so it integrates well this whole idea of
the army mentality.
Yeah, and are you supposed to fraternize? Are you supposed to potentially get into relationships and all that sort of stuff? It does so many little things so well, so that's why it's really hard to categorize.
One of my favorite things, which people might not understand unless you're a nerd like me in the sense of history, some of the planes are painted the same way that they are in World War I and II, which just thrills me to the utmost extent. I am super in love with that whole idea. Most people would probably fly by and it's it's a design choice. It's it is a design choice by choice. It's an intentional choice. Yeah. So I love it.
So yeah, as you can tell, we kind of geek out about it.
Yeah,
and I think it came from nowhere. I think
nowhere.
I literally saw it on a website, and I was like, "Oh, this could be kind of neat."
I remember what happened was I was looking through the season, and you looked over my shoulder, and you're like, "Let me see," and you were scrolling through, you're like, "Dragons!" I remember that. Heavily.
That didn't work for something else. So
we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. But I was like, whoa! And I remember, if you take a look at it, even go on MAL or whatnot, it's unique looking. It's not I don't even know how to, one of them is almost like a dragon, similar to Dragonite, where it looks almost oh, you're kind of cute.
It's kind of more round, more plump.
Yeah.
Other ones that are very sharp features, it's cool.
One that's more serpentine almost.
So, was it perfect? No. I gave it an 8. I think Jeff gave it a 9.
Yes. Yeah.
So, it does have some flaws, but overall it's good. You should watch it.
The flaws, I think, are just more in the sense of
finding itself.
Yeah, finding itself, and then there are times when I'm not sure if they just didn't do a great job of lore building, or if you are supposed to be confused because the characters are confused.
Yeah, that's
so. It's was this just a poor job of integrating the lore, or are we left being confused because our characters
confused.
Are?
So I had to dock them because you can't assume genius is confusion. So that's why it also got docked a little bit. I'm I can't assume they meant that intentionally, but who knows? You'll know what I mean when you watch it. We'll talk later.
Watch it, please.
Love a chitty chat. So, next one would be Golden Kamuy. Which, okay, let's start out here first. So Golden Kamuy, everyone gave it shit because of the CG bear, which is fine. It deserves shit over the CG bear. But everyone right away wrote it off because of the CG bear. It is good.
Oh,
Let me throw that down. They made bad choices about putting the bear in CG and a couple shots of the wolf. That's all that's really, significantly CG. The rest of it is, a really entertaining story. It is just madness, gore, blood, humor, you name it, it's there. And it's my kind of show, because it's all my dark, funny bones.
It goes from having characters with half their face ripped off to then a character who thinks that another one is eating poop, and so it just has this weird. It reminded me a lot of.
And the poop thing is because of cultural language differences and things just not translating, which is the recurring joke.
Mm-hmm. And so it reminded me a lot actually of something the Sugar really likes, which is Bakano, where. There's a lot of characters, there's a lot going on. it revels in the fact that it kind of has this goofy gore aspect to it, and like the premise is insane. Like it's 100%. It's just kind of weird stuff.
The premise is insane. Everything else is insane.
What? Yeah, everybody wanting to go after gold, that's fine. The way they have to find it is insane.
Yeah,
like,
we won't get into it.
Let's just say it has to do with finding a bunch of people and putting together a map. But like
gory.
Yeah, and so then you have this character who, like, we have our main protagonist who literally thinks himself immortal.
Sugimoto.
Immortal Sugimoto, and that he ends up befriending somebody who we think is kind of young, but they don't treat her as like young, 12. Yeah. I think she's just short. But
I can't really get a concrete age, even me looking at stuff.
Like essentially like a First Nations sort of Japanese character. The Ainu, I believe, is what they say.
Yeah, Ainu.
But yeah, like, there's just so much kind of insanity going on, and they have fun with it, and they realize... They're very self-aware of the fact that, like, these characters are nuts. Everything that's happening here is bonkers. Let's just have a good time with it. And they're all moving towards this, same goal, which is why I say, like, I compared it a little bit to Baccano in the sense that you got a bunch of characters who are all crazy and weird, and they all have their little idiosyncrasies, and it all kind of points together to this one potential, like, end point, essentially.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but in a sense I get what you're saying, but at the same token it's not as good as Baccano.
I know
Baccano is much better. Just throwing that out there. But no, seriously. I really like the show because, like he was saying, I love the idea of all these people going after one thing, but all of them being very different. Like, you're dealing with somebody who's a psychopath. You're dealing with somebody who's a perfect, like, sniper, marksman. You're dealing with somebody who's a perfect hunter. You're dealing with all these people trying to get to the same goal at the same time, and they're all interceding with each other, and it's amazing. Amazing.
I just thought of even a better thing. This feels like a Tarantino film.
Yes! I love Tarantino. That's a better analogy.
Yeah, Baccano to me feels Tarantino-esque as well, but this feels more Tarantino.
Because, like, to me, like, Baccano, which I'm sure all of you are tired of me saying, Baccano is like a bunch of different stories and all these great things happening, where this is like literally one story. We're all, in the sense of all of them converging on one thing, and all of them have different stories getting there, but and it hasn't gotten so much as world building with a lot of characters, but it's more of the sense of like, oh, it was like really good action scenes in the sense of like what will happen. We have this really like set a mood here in a sense where, like, they're in the woods, it's like the middle of winter, it's freezing, and you're just kind of waiting to hear if somebody like crunches like on any branches, or if they like accidentally like whip up one of your traps. It's like, I want to say it's just like suspenseful, but it's just fun. I like it.
Yeah, it's
just craziness.
Very good mix of like suspense.
Yeah.
And like within the same episode, you will be laughing like just hysterically at these characters who are just doing bizarre things,
and then you'll be wide-eyed.
It'll just switch in a second where you're like, whoa, or you like characters will meet. And you, as the viewer, know that they're like,
who they are.
Oh my god, like what's gonna happen here? And then they spend half the episode like just having a good time together because they don't know.
No. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like when the pieces fit together, you're just like,
and you realize that everyone else realizes what's happening. They're all at a table, like, oh my god.
Yeah, and it does a really good job as well. Like, there are definitely some despicable people that you're like, no, I just want them to die. But then there's other ones where you're like, I get where you're coming from, or I feel a little bit of a sense of like, oh cool, like you're like an honorable hunter and this is just your prey, and it just sucks that you're going after this protagonist that we love, but it's like it's honorable in its own sort of way, and because this is a story that takes place right after a war. And so there are all these people who have been bred for war, who have done nothing but have combat for years and years, are now just like told, okay, no, go live a normal life. And then they're like, what do you mean? normal life.
That's the thing. You're dealing with all these people that are kind of specialists in their own way. Like, we have people who are military, like I said, some that are hunters, other ones that were prisoners, like all of them have their special traits. Like, and it's
the Yakuza is involved.
The Yakuza's involved, and it's just boss. I love it. And yeah, I think you hit it hard with Tarantino. I like those ones where it's just madness, but in a organized madness, if that makes sense. Like, we all understand what all of them are going for. There are a couple stories where we aren't sure exactly what the end game is for some of them, but we kind of have an understanding of what they're aiming at, and it's just exciting. And it gets me to a point where I'm almost tempted to go and read the manga, because it sucks for me to have to wait for another season. And yes, there will be another season.
It's coming in October, so we don't have to wait too long.
I'm so happy.
It's still very nice, because like I'm liking this where they take like one season off and then they come back. Overlord, I think, is doing the same thing. They maybe took 2 seasons off and now they're back this season, so it's like
Overlord's back.
Yay! I'm feeling very happy.
Yeah. If they can pull it off, I'm happy. Like, that's what always makes. But what gives me joy is when they are confident in being able to pull it off and they do it. It's when you get horrible cringe when you see people doing that and then they're not ready, and it just fucking eats shit.
Again, because I feel like you have to get sometimes just the basics. CGI, not good. It's very noticeable.
But 90% to 95% is just normal animation.
They have really unique facial features.
Yes,
like when people are disgusted, it's like, it just looks funny.
It plays with humor.
It's cartoonish in a way,
Yeah, when it plays with humor, it really plays with like their facial features and kind of like over-exaggerating them to make a point. I feel like that very much leans into the manga kind of frame set of, or mindset of a lot of mangaka.
We watched it subbed. I believe we watched an episode of the dub and we thought like the voice was fine, but we liked the performances better in the sub.
Yes.
They're done
God,
really well.
I love Sugimoto's voice in Japanese.
It is. And all of these characters who, like I said, some are legit, like, insane, and they sound it, and they are performed exceptionally well.
So good.
Where it's just like, I don't want to walk in. I don't want to come near you in a back alley. Like,
just the way the words come out of their mouth when they say these sentences. It's just so bone chilling. You're like, oh my god.
And then some people, you're like, wow, you look like you would destroy bowls for a living, and then they do destroy a lot of things. But then like they're like super happy, and they sound like like
normal
average
people,
Joe, and then that
as soon as they go serious, I love that. Just that instability that you hear in their voices, and I love it. They did such a good job.
Yes, it's very good, and we both recommend it as long as you're okay with like a little crass. A little... Yeah,
be prepared for, comments on sexuality, comments on gore, comments on crap, but not in a, can I say, a lowest common denominator way, but in a sense of kind of addressing it when things come up. Or when they're drinking.
So, some of that going on.
I feel like it's a good show. Don't let the CG kind of get to you, not like another one we'll be talking about. But it's just the bear... and sometimes the wolf. The rest of it's really good. I think you like it. If you like Tarantino at all, you'll like it.
And I think they obviously did it on purpose, and I felt like they were just trying to go for like a style that just didn't work. Like, I feel like because...
I'm surprised they committed to it, because the entire season they stayed with it with the bear.
And definitely...
The wolf they leaned off of.
The bear and the wolf were both... there is an aspect of the anime that is about like... And I have no idea because I'm not a Japanese historian, but it's like essentially like First Nations stories about like from Japanese First Nations, and I don't know if any of it is true. But
I was about to say we bring it up every podcast. I'm like, I should look into it, and I should, because again, we don't know if this is any of its real history.
Even if it isn't true, and this is all just made up for this world, like they show some reverence to it, and
a lot of it is made up, but a part of it like. Some of the stories they tell, it's like, that is based in real, like, lore. Like, even, like, Canadian First Nation lore. So I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was true.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things I will look up. I should
so part of the reason why like the bear and the wolf play a significant role throughout the season. And so that's why I think they're made to look that way, because they're made to be like
Jeff is the
different.
optimist. I think they were just kind of hoping to, you know.
I don't think it was a cost-cutting measure, but or anything like that.
I think they were just, I don't know what to say. A lot of the times my excuse is cost-cutting, but I feel in this case I think they thought it would move more fluidly, but it was a mistake. It moved pretty quickly and fluidly, but I feel like they would have had better results drawing it.
Oh yeah, it was definitely a stark contrast.
Contrast.
Giguk had a little bit all
bad
about
CG
it. Yeah.
fighting bad CG. Yeah.
Being attacked by a bad CG.
Don't get me wrong; those are valid points. It was bad CG, so you can't be mad about that. I'm just saying, give it a chance. It's not just bad CG like other anime, which are like all bad CG.
Yeah.
This is a couple moments. You'll move past it. You like Tarantino, you'll like it. Let's move on. So the next one is Legend of the Galactic Heroes, and no, not the original, but the reboot here. And I know a lot of people, let's just get this out of the way first. A lot of people were like, I didn't like it because it wasn't like the original. Let's pretend you didn't watch the original. I didn't. Yeah. Which I feel bad because I was intended to, but this happened, so this gave me an out. Innocent.
I mean, if we're going to be looking at the list of anime that we're supposed to watch, that's going to be double the length of everything we've watched.
The list is so long.
It's too much.
Long story short, even if you had watched the original, I feel like people are too hard on it because it was really good. I really liked it.
I 100% get why it won't be everybody's bag, because there is a lot of...
That has nothing to do with the original. It's it's the fact that it's politics.
It's a little bit slower moving. It is political in nature. It's looking at the nature of war, looking at why war happens and like
history.
And history and philosophical views on things, and like the space combat that exists it's more about like strategy and counter and like tactics and whatnot, as opposed to like, we're gonna watch this one character be an amazing dog fighter in space and shoot down 35 guys. No, that's not what it's about. It's about being a leader. And what does that mean to two sides of this galactic war that's happening?
I love it.
I feel like it's really good.
And it's not even... Sorry.
I was gonna say...
Go ahead.
I just put my cards on the table. I have a degree in poli-sci. I am very intrigued by politics and sociology and the way that countries and peoples all interact together, and how we've went from, getting kind of nerdy, like how we've went from essentially just being a band of peoples who are all fighting each other for resources to now essentially having some form of civil peace between one another and whatnot. So having an anime that looks at that on a galactic scale, looking at the people who are being looked to be leaders in a war that neither of them started. It's a war that's existed for hundreds of years now. It's partly ideological. There are people who are involved in it who are just using both sides because they're arms dealers, and they're like, let's just make this go on as long as we can so we can make billions and billions of dollars. There's, one character just kind of wants peace and wants to be able to retire and just be like, I want to study history. That's where my true goal is. And then there's another who is like, my family was crapped on by the way that our system works. You know what? I want to change how that system works. And you know how I do that? By becoming a damn emperor. That's how I change things. Like just watching the machinations, watching it all happen it's so good.
Yeah, I think you run into people who again are like, oh, I want world building, but I don't want to sit through it, sort of thing. And I feel like this is the perfect example of an anime that sets up everything perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that in the sense of like, he hit on it a good amount, which was what I was going to point out earlier, is the fact that it's not just a person who is the leader. It's not like a Star Wars where this is our main guy and we're going to watch him kick ass. we get two sides of a war, and their leaders in a sense, and the people they have to guide these this infantry and so forth, and you get both of their perspectives, what drives them. But then you have all these other like people and groups, and basically, how can I say this without spoiling anything? Basically, all of them having their own agenda, and then pushing their own agenda in a different way, whether it be politics, through force, through violence, through whatever. And you see all the different ways that people feel like of how they get their point across, whether it be through the system or just through brute force. You know what I mean? And both of these people who are kind of, in a way, our focus for the show, they both have really great qualities, and they both have really neat ways of looking at things. I'm personally into our blue side, which is Yang. And
I mean, he's
me in the sense of like, if you understand history, you understand war. You understand that it repeats itself, and that these things haven't changed. And if you understand what's happened, you can understand what's going to happen. I love that. That's me.
But the thing that I want to give it credit for is that he's obviously our protagonist. He is the one who is positioned in a way that you root for him. You still root for the other guy.
Yep.
Because you're like, I get why you're doing this.
Yeah.
I understand. And he 100%, like, it isn't just, there's this protagonist and then there's this antagonist that we hate. It's more like two people who are playing chess.
It's
and
so
you're
funny.
like, and you're just kind of like, I kind of want them both to win.
It's very funny because in the beginning, because I didn't know much about the original other than, the basic plot of what's happening. Was the fact where when you meet our first gentleman, you're like, okay, he has valid points. I can see why he would be the leader. I can see why he's likely going to win. Then you go to the other side, you're like, he also made good points. And it has a good chance of winning. So it's like,
and then,
go!
And then the two of them, like, they both respect one another.
Yeah.
They hear about each other, and they're two people who are, opposed because they're on different sides of a war, but then they'll hear about the others, and they're like, wow, that was a really good move. Or, you know what, I respect him for knowing that this was a feint. And it's not just combat, but it's also, like, philosophically speaking. And they're trying to understand each other and, like, plan, like, 8 moves in advance, trying to understand the man and what the man will want to do.
And I was like, I think that was one of the statements. He's like, are you really thinking that far ahead, that assuming that he will fail? It's just like, I have to. Like,
yeah, he was like, if I think of him to be my rival and as good as me, I have to think this far out. And then, and then the other guy is doing the exact same thing.
He's just like, well, if I think this, he has to.
You know what would be, what's kind of analogous to this?
What's that?
Death Note. And the way that those two, like,
instead of like two people, it's two like groups.
Yeah. And so, like, it's just, you see these two people who kind of, they respect each other, they just are on two different sides, and it's like,
of a losing battle, yeah.
And the great thing as well is that it doesn't shy away from all of, like, the political BS that's happening.
Yeah.
Yang, at one point, he's like, he has a success, and then he's like, so now they're just going to use me as a way to push forward.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't necessarily blame them, but he's like, this doesn't do anything but make the war last longer.
Yeah. He's like, I don't want this.
Yeah, but then he's like, but I mean, I don't have the ability to say no.
Yeah.
He, at one point, tries to quit, and they're like, no.
We refuse your refusal.
Yeah. And then it's interesting, because, like, the person that he talked to, his direct superior, was basically like, if I let you go, this lasts forever.
Yeah.
And he's like, if you want this to stop, I'm going to make you make this stop.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, man. Like, and he just kind of, like Yang just kind of smiles, and he's like, well, okay. Like, if this is the only way war is going to stop, I guess I gotta get to a position where I can stop war.
And I love it in the sense of, like, there's a lot of characters which I can kind of see myself in, where it's like, there's people that are like, oh, I'm like this kind of, I'm really good at this thing, and I'm kind of, unpredictable, but it's just like, if you're the leader, then I would find a reason to kind of help this situation, but if not, then I guess I'll just die and that's blood on your hands. You know, the kind of like a little bit of like, I'll do this and I can be like your number one for like backup, but I need you to be like there for me too, sort of thing. And I was just like, that's so cool. It would be me though. It's just like, I'll do this, but only if they do.
I think that, and it's another one where some people have pointed out that there's some use of CG and it can get a little like not jarring necessarily because I mean it's spaceships and space battles, so
don't get me wrong, they do use CG sometimes a little excessively, like even when they're at parties, and I'm like, come on. I was like, you didn't need that.
But overall, I think it looks cool.
Yeah.
I think that it looks exactly how it needs to look. The performances are amazing in the sub. I don't think either of us have watched the dub at all.
Did it get a dub?
Yes.
Okay.
But the sub, like they're both amazing, and they're great orateurs, and they have all these great speeches, and you're just like, you get really energized by them. It's awesome.
And I can already sense these questions coming on, so I'll address it now. It does not glorify war. It points out why war is bad. It points out why prolonging it's even worse, and how it affects everybody, not just the people in the battlefield, but everybody.
Yeah, and then there is a plan where, unfortunately, one side of the war effort is kind of... They get screwed over a little bit. And a character is like, you do realize that we're screwing them over, and he's just like, we're talking about stopping a war to save trillions and trillions of people.
Yeah.
If I have to put a few million in some jeopardy right now and make it up to them later, like,
those are
you play the cards that you're dealt.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, and so and you can even tell, like, he doesn't back down or anything, but when he's speaking with confidants, he's like, I don't feel good.
Yeah, I love that.
This.
He's just honest. He's like, do you really feel like that? He's just like, well, I don't have a choice, do I? Like, this is really our only choice.
If you want this to be successful, this is the plan that I came up with.
Yeah.
Come up with something better, please. Like,
it's just
he almost begs him, like, come up with something better. This is what I can come up with.
Yeah, it's just like, if you can't come up with anything, this is our plan. And they're like, yeah, let's do it then.
And that's reflective of war, where in the First World War, we just had these trench battles that lasted for months, and all it was throwing humanity at each other.
Yeah.
And literally, like, people who came back, their stories were just like, we literally were talking to each other because we were 20 feet away. And we'd be like, how are you feeling on this side? And, if it was like a holiday, they would maybe take a break for a while, but then they're just like, this is what it is. And it doesn't shy away from that. It doesn't shy away from, like you said, all the political machinations and people who are using this to benefit, and people who are like, well, I'm just going to use them right now. Let's hope they just die after they've, been successful for a while, so they're not a thorn in my side later. And, like, all of that sort of stuff, it vilifies politics a little bit, but the politics of war, there's villainy. Like, there is flat-out villainy in that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't shy away from that either.
Yeah.
There are these idealistic people who are like, I want to make all these changes, and I want to, defend our nation, and whatnot.
Hard.
And then there's people who are like, well,
that's
awesome that they want to do that, because I want to take over this area.
I was about to say, it's even in that situation, it's like, oh great, they're doing that. That takes like notice away from me doing this. You know what I mean? That's how war works.
Profiteers, or like the attention that the creators have obviously put to what happens in war.
Yeah.
And putting it in what I feel is an interesting way.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be interesting for everyone. If none of the stuff we're talking about interests you, this isn't the anime for you.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever going to be this action-packed.
There is some action, but it's kind of just, it's like Star Wars kind of action where it's ships in space shooting each other. There's not like epic, like, gunfights or sword fights. It's just like army warfare in space.
Lots of like
slow moving.
Let's move. This squadron over here. Or pinch through these guys in, and they're gonna try and wedge here and like do this
maneuvers.
Instead. Yeah, and so there isn't that scene. There was a tiny scene with like one group of dog fighters who were like really, really good, and that was their ace in the hole for that battle, where it was like, oh wow, like we don't have a counter for this.
And
like,
that whole like
going
episode
on?
is really great because then it also shows about, I won't get into it. Long story short, how war affects everybody. Let's just say that. Watch it.
Yeah.
It's good.
It is really good, and if any of that sort of stuff sounds enticing to you, take it in.
Politics, history, war, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking for something else, pick something else.
we got a few other things to talk about that are going to have a lot of other else.
So, next up on the list, second season of Seven Deadly Sins. It was good. I liked it. The beginning first few episodes was sketchy, and I was like,
There's
oh god.
some sketch there, yeah.
Or
Is this going to be like the OVAs?
It scared me because the second, like, especially in the first episode where they're talking about power levels, I'm like, oh my god. I was just like, oh.
They learned from Dragon Ball Z that
Dragon
you
Ball.
want power levels.
Dragon Ball was gradual, not like, we're doing this now, get on board.
Well, I mean, the original Dragon Ball didn't have any power levels, and then Dragon Ball Z starts with power levels.
I mean, like, that's what I mean, though. It wasn't like the first episode, it wasn't like, this is how it's going to be. It's all of a sudden, oh, these new people come with the technology to kind of spot this, and, you know, yada, yada, yada. But this is just like, first episode is like, this is what we're doing now. I was like, what?
Yeah.
But, yeah.
It found its footing real quick.
Yeah, really quick. All I can say about it, I shouldn't say that. One of the things I'll say about it is what I pointed out to Jeff, and Jeff agreed with me. Just because I've done some reading ahead in the manga, I feel like sometimes it doesn't explain itself well to the audience in regards to why some of these things are happening. You still understand because it's mentioned very lightly why these things are happening, but I feel like they should have gone to a fuller extent of the wars that happened preceding these events. But that's just kind of my own thing, because I feel like you'd better grasp what's kind of happening in some extent.
It feels like
especially the scene with Merlin, you'd better understand if you understood before. But anyways.
It feels like they kind of go for more shock.
Yeah.
Like shock and awe instead of like explaining why that's happening.
And I feel like they still could do shock and awe if they explain things, because even some of the things that were said were a surprise.
Yeah.
But I really liked it. It was really some really good action scenes, some very good like whoa moments.
It upsets me a little bit, like before I guess we're talking about all the great stuff with it. Like,
I'm gonna bring this ship down.
certain characters are almost like written out in a way, like because they're with the introduction of power levels, there has to then be these ones who just
the
aren't.
Bar and then those below the bar, yeah.
Yeah. So like I feel like a couple of characters kind of get the short end of the stick.
Yeah, I felt bad because especially when these people that are below the bar, it's like I can go up against them. The boosh, they die. I was like, no, I like them.
Yeah, and it's not just like with the you know the lower rank, even within the sins, even within the Seven Deadly Sins themselves. There's definitely some characters who were
Given
almost
less
forgotten
airtime.
in the second half. You know.
Not even forgotten, because I feel like they still poke in and around, but I feel like it's definitely lighter on some of them.
Yeah. I mean, when you introduce the seventh sin and that character is friggin' unbelievably awesome, then it's like, okay, cool. And
I love him so much.
Yeah, and you get some more backstory about Melodias, which was definitely needed. And the villains that they introduce are intriguing, and their history is really kind of neat. And the little breadcrumbs that they put towards you, sort of like understanding what's happening, is like really cool. I felt like they did a really good job of giving you enough that you're really, really excited for the next season.
Yeah, definitely hinting at another season because things were left unfinished with a lot of things. It was a really good season, honestly. If you liked the first one, you'll like the second. My favorite so far in the season was the story with Zhivago. It gutted me.
Zhivago
because I'm a softie. That one got me. The rest were pretty good. I was a couple things I'd nitpick here and there, but I won't get into because I don't want to spoil. I'll say a couple words and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Tournament arc. And you'll see what I mean. I have nothing against tournament arcs. It just feels like they kind of led up to something bigger when it wasn't. So you'll see what I mean. long story short, it was good. I don't know what else we have to say. If you've seen the first season, you'll know what the second season is.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen the first season, it's on Netflix.
Yeah,
There's
give it a
lots
go.
of ways to... If you like the first season, ignore the OVAs.
Yeah,
weird
stay away from the...
Mini second
Stay
season.
away.
Stay away from season 1.5. They literally, I think, retcon it out of existence in season
God.
2. So they're like, oh, well, that was a crazy dream.
Ugh.
And we're like, and both Sugar and I were like, yes, it was.
I literally
Thank you
just
that
like
it's a dream.
smeared my hand across my face, and I was just like, ugh, that was such a bogus. Ugh, it was bad.
Oh.
Anywho, it was good, and yeah, stay away from the little filler there after season 1.
Yeah.
It was good. And long story short, if you haven't heard about it, there's people with special abilities called the Sins, and they have they kind of come together, fight evil, fight bad. Second season, continue on fighting bad. That's all we'll say.
Yeah, it doesn't belong in that upper echelon. Does it hit My Hero Academia, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, or the best of what Hunter x Hunter does? No. But at the same point, like...
Is it still noteworthy? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't think Yu Yu Hakusho is fantastic, but lots of people do. So, I mean...
I haven't seen it.
Sometimes I feel like when it comes to shonen, it just has to be certain characters speak to you, or certain storylines speak to you.
I love Vaughn. Oh,
And I mean, you're going to find one of the members of the Sins that you're going to appreciate and like, and that's something that's good. Like, lots of people who watch Dragon Ball, they hate Goku with a passion, but it's like, hey, at least I get Piccolo.
Yeah. I used to love Vegeta. It's kind of waned a little bit, but I still like him. Especially this last season. Boy. Anywho, I think that's all that needs to be said. We'll move on to our last completed, which is Wotaku.
This is
So good. So good.
Mm-hmm.
If you were looking for a rom-com this season, this is it. Not
Yes.
Tada. This is the one. If you watch just one this season, this is it. It
was interesting in the sense that, like, everybody was talking about Tadakun
Yeah,
at
that
the
was
start.
like, no.
Yeah, and then now that, like, everything is done, everybody's talking about Wotaku.
Yeah.
It's,
So everybody else, they're like, I'm watching Tada now. I was like, you should watch this as I slide it across the table.
don't
This.
do that. You, like,
This.
just block it with your
Yeah.
hands. That doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Do this. Yeah.
It does so many things right. Long story short, it's about otakus that are working otakus, wotakus. And there's two couples we meet. They're two very different couples, but it's still funny in the sense it's very humorous, it's very honest, it's very sweet at times. It's very much an enjoyable rom-com. I don't know what else. It's drawn very well. The manga, I skimmed it, looked like it was drawn very well, very much taken from the manga.
The performances were excellent. I don't think it has a dub right now, so you don't.
And not as far as I know.
Sub.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the performances are really well done. The characters are super believable.
Yeah.
One of the things that will always kind of push me aside when it comes to rom-coms or just romance in general is like when they hit these weird stereotypes of people that don't really exist and relationships that don't really exist and whatnot. So I like the fact that it feels very realistic.
Yeah.
It feels very much like, oh, I know couples that are like that.
Oh, totally.
Like couples that fight all the time, but you're like, well, they just do it because like they're so passionate about things, and that's fine. The situations they get into are like everybody could kind of relate to it. Even people who haven't really been in really serious relationships before will relate to it in some capacity, where it'll just be like, just these little side stories. And that's the best thing about it, is that it isn't heavy, it isn't filled with like melodrama or anything like that. It is just the earnest story of 4 friends, 2 couples, and kind of their lives together.
Yeah. And I don't know what much more needs to be said, but like it's very much about like the gaming part of them. That's kind of like their otaku part of them, but it also gets into the jokes about manga and yaoi and things like that. Things that other couples like joke about, especially
the
those
kind
involved.
of people who watch anime.
Yeah,
It's about us.
it's definitely about us.
Because they spend part of the episode talking about which character should be a top and what should be a bottom in a yaoi coupling, and that's something
very much a conversation I'd have with one of my gal pals. That's
yeah, like is it better for the more dominant man to be the top or the bottom? Like, and they just talk about it because it's like
just
that's what they're
openly,
interested
yeah.
in. And they're like,
and I love that some of the characters, like even the boyfriends, are like, we don't talk about this in public. It's like, no, this is a very valid point.
Yeah, and they talk about the same sort of stuff we do, where it's like, oh my god, did you see that episode of blank? And I don't even know if these series exist, but then they're just like, they're gushing about it, and the other characters are like, the boys will just be like, I didn't really watch it, but I'm happy that they're like, they're really invested in it.
And one of the girls who's one of the couples is really into cosplay, and so that's another form of humor with her trying to get her boyfriend to get into it, and it's so funny.
Especially when the other male character is like, yeah,
very
sure.
into it. He's like, yeah, sure, you can dress me up. And he's like, why? Why do you let her do this?
Why do you let her do this to you? It just means that she's going to pressure me all that more hard to do it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what? I don't see what the big deal is.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm pretty as a woman.
Yeah. Like, I'm actually pretty good looking as a woman.
Yeah, it's just like,
you should try it too. Like, you have really good cheekbones.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's relatable. You like all of the characters. That's another thing that I don't like about some rom-coms, where it's like there's one character that you're obviously meant to like dislike.
Yeah.
There's one character who's like, oh, they're kind of obnoxious, or they're stereotypical, or they're filling a certain niche, or all these sorts of things, when really it's just like, no, these are just four nerds.
Yeah.
And the kind of people who tend to watch anime, especially something that is subtitled only, will appreciate.
Yeah, like, it's not to generalize the community or anything, but it's just very much like people I've talked to, and even our group of friends who are really into anime, who are into manga, who are into gaming. We have all these, like, weird discussions where I'm like, one of my gal pals will come over. I won't say her name. But anyways, she'll come over and she's just like, oh my god, I have to show you, like, this fanfic thing, or I have to show you, like, this, like, drawing that I found or whatever, and I'm like, oh my god, and she's just so delighted, and it's so funny seeing her light up, and it's so cute. And we'll go back and forth, and I'll send her stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, I know you'll get a kick out of this, and she'll just die, you know. And that's kind of like it might not be everyone's relationship with their friends or their loved ones, but that's kind of our relationship, where it's based around like references and like hobbies that are like gratefully enjoyed between us and our friends, you know. And that's kind of a lot of the stuff we talk about and joke about. That's us.
And I appreciate that the one who's like the biggest gamer out of the group is playing Monster Hunter World the entire time. Granted, it's Monster Hunter on the Switch, so in Japan that probably means it was Monster Hunter Generations, but we don't have that here yet. But it's like, and they have like tertiary characters who get brought in.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I would call him the antagonist. The protagonist, his brother, gets introduced, who's just not involved in any of this. But he's very earnest in the sense of like
he wants to
spend time with them, and
he's very much not a nerd, so it's really cute him trying to like play like MMOs with them or trying to, you know, speak the jargon. He's just like, is that like a game?
And then like they introduce a character for him to sort of like become friends with, who is a big gamer, and like he so earnestly wants to be good, or at least serviceable. So he's like, I don't want to hold you back, like, because when he was with his brother, his brother was just like, please stop, you're screwing me over.
Yeah.
So he's got this like little thing where he's like, I don't want to hold you back, and he's such a lovely human being.
He's so cute.
And who is he the voice of? He's the voice of Meliodas, right?
I'd have to double check, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, because I think he's Meliodas' voice, and we were like, oh my god, it's Meliodas talking about how he wants to be very good at video games.
It's very cute. Yeah. So yeah, if you're looking for rom-com, that's it for the season, so...
Get it.
Get
it, got it, good.
It is the best of the season for rom-com. So next will be our ongoing.